Hello everyone, my name's Zenitsu, and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT15, and BT15 offers us lots of new and powerful tools in order to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be the latest iteration of the Angoramon deck. So Angoramon is utilizing lots of new cards from the LM set, which is found inside of BT15 in terms of his direct upgrades, similarly to a lot of the other Ghost Games decks. But what Angoramon is doing more specifically is, well, your classic green deck thing, where you're trying to suspend the opponent's Digimon down, gain benefits for doing so, and beat them up for more control and advantage. Then you also have fast evolutions being inside of green, so the ability to climb and respond to the opponent is going to be slightly higher than your average deck in order to deal with potential threats that the opponent is going to be throwing at you. Then the deck also has a solid amount of DP gaining, so that way your Digimon are always going to be bigger than the opponent's Digimon. Then it also is trying to work in some defensive plays, utilizing the blocker ability as a nice sub-theme, and the ability to unsuspend to either up the aggression or up the defense, depending on the situation. The deck, however, does have a couple of weaknesses, mainly being the reliance on the opponent needing things on the field in order to interact with, in order to make your cards that much more effective. There are a couple of exceptions inside of this deck, but again, those are just exceptions, and that's not necessarily the rule. Then the deck, it doesn't have the best consistency or protection, especially when you're comparing it to other green decks. The card quality isn't necessarily as high as what some of the other green decks are doing in comparison, making it so there's not really much of a reason to want to play this outside of it just being a fun and interesting deck, trying to play similarly to All Force Fiendramon, but in green. So with all that said and done, let's just dive right into the deck profile and see what we're working with. So when it comes to the Digitamers, you kind of do have the flexibility to run whatever you feel like will best support the deck. I personally am just going to be running 4 copies of Bosamon because I do want that DP gain to make my Digimon as strong as possible. But if you wanted to run something like Gummimon, either as the 5th egg or the main egg, again, it really doesn't matter. Gummimon is good just because it's one of the better ways that the deck has in order to have a decent draw engine. Then when it comes to the level 3s, I'm going to be running an all Angoramon lineup. So I'm going to run 4 copies of the RB1 Angoramon. So this is the deck's dedicated searcher or digging tool, allowing us to look for our other Angoramon named tools and our main tamer, while also having that inheritable ability to further try to DP boost our Digimon during all turns, which is really important to make our Digimon as strong as it possibly can at all times. Then I'm going to be running 2 copies of the BT10 Angoramon because this is a pretty decent draw engine when we're going to be playing our Tamers, which we're going to have to do or want to do in order to set them up to get the deck going. Then it also has a nice draw engine in its inheritable ability as well for suspending the opponent's Digimon down. Then I'm going to run 4 copies of the brand new LM Angoramon. So this has a really powerful start of main ability to try to give us some extra tempo as long as we have a tamer on our field. And its inheritable ability, again, is just trying to help it DP boost our Digimon. And then the last rookie of the deck is just going to be 2 copies of the promo Angoramon as just a nice easy way to have access at extra memory when we're being aggressive with our tamer set up. And then when it comes to the level 4s, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Airdramon. So Airdramon isn't necessarily an Angoramon card, but it does have Angoramon in its text, so it's still semi-searchable within the deck, as well as interacting directly with our Angoramon-based cards, because its ability states that during your turn, when a card with Angoramon in its text would be played or would digivolve, then we get to suspend this Digimon to reduce the play cost or Digivolution cost by 2, making our cards easier to use overall. And it even has a nice upside for when it becomes suspended, because when it's suspended, one of our Digimon with Angoramon in its text also gains the Rush ability for the turn, making it so we have extra ways to be able to aggress. Then I'm going to be running 3 copies of the LM Simbare Angoramon. And this is a pretty good card because, again, it has that flexibility, whether we're playing it or digivolving, where we get to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon, which already is pretty good on a level 4, and then we get to have an additional ability where then if there are no unsuspended Digimon, one of your Digimon gains the blocker ability until the end of the opponent's turn, again giving us ways to be able to have some extra lines of defense while having that same inheritable ability as we saw with the LM Angoramon for some extra DP. Then I'm going to be running 3 copies of the RB1 Simbare Angoramon. So this is going to be the way the deck is going to try to set up its Tamer, ideally if we don't already have one. And its inheritable ability is just, again, copying the RB1 Angoramon, having us have extra ways at gaining some nice DP during all turns. And the last level 4 of the deck is going to be 2 copies of the BT10 version of Simbare Angoramon, because this is another card to try to help us gain some extra memory to make our plays that much more powerful. Then when it comes to the level 5s, I'm just going to be running an all Lemortmon lineup because there's no real reason for me not to use these cards because of their native synergy and abilities. So I'm going to be running 3 copies of the RB1 Lemortmon. So he has a nice when digivolving ability to gain piercing for the turn, which is really nice because we want to attack into the opponent's Digimon, and piercing just allows us to be able to deal damage while beating up their Digimon. Then if this Digimon has Angoramon in its name in its Digivolution source, we also get to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon, giving us that target to then attack into. And then his inheritable ability is really good to support our higher stages because it's just burning the opponent's security stack when this Digimon deletes an opponent's Digimon by battle. So it's just doing another very stereotypical green thing where we're going to try piercing into the opponent's Digimon, get that piercing check, and also get that burn check at the same time to maximize on our damage. Then I'm going to be running 2 copies of the BT13 Lemortmon. So the BT13 Lemortmon is allowing us to have access at a somewhat warp ability to try to climb our stages as efficiently as we can, because its ability triggers from our hand during our main phase, where if we have our main tamer, which is Ruli, set up on our field, we get to place a Simbare Angoramon from our hand to the bottom of one of our Angoramon's Digivolution sources to have that card digivolve into Lemortmon for 3 and ignore the Digivolution requirements. So it allows us to skip that stage and go right up into a level 5. Then its inheritable ability is also pretty decent, being similar to Lemortmon from RB1, allowing us to be able to have consistency on being able to delete the opponent's security when we're attacking over their Digimon and deleting them. And then the last level 5 of the deck is going to be 3 copies of the brand new LM Lemortmon. So he has the nice on-play and when digivolving ability to be able to have extra flexibility on how we could utilize this card, but the ability is still really strong, allowing us to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon down, and if they have no unsuspended Digimon, then one of their Digimon can't unsuspend until the end of their turn, effectively stun-locking their Digimon, making it so that they can't really utilize their Digimon effectively or at all. Then its inheritable ability is doing something very similar to the other 2 Lemortmon, just a little bit better, because it triggers during all turns once per turn. When one of your Digimon with Angoramon in their text deletes an opponent's Digimon by battle, then we get to trash the top card of their security stack, allowing us to actually think about utilizing our cards in a more defensive manner, or we could just use it like the others and just attack their Digimon and still get that burn effect. And then when it comes to the level 6s, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Dire-Rabbitmon. So this is the RB1 version of Dire-Rabbitmon, and he natively is a blocker, but he is a really powerful card on how we could utilize him, because his when digivolving and when attacking ability is not limited to once per turn, so we could use it repeated times, allowing us to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon down, and then if the opponent has no unsuspended Digimon, we get to gain 1 memory. So the fact that we could just digivolve, suspend something, gain that memory, then swing, gain another memory is what makes this card really, really strong at being hyper tempo efficient. Then he even has a nice end of turn ability where one of your Digimon with Angoramon in its text, which includes this card, may attack an opponent's Digimon. So even if we Digivolve and the memory passes over onto the opponent's side, we still can try to utilize this ability to swing into the opponent's Digimon and to be able to clear them, while also trying to gain that extra tempo to maintain our turn. Then the last and supporting level 6 of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Diarabitmon Ace, because it's still a really decent card, obviously because it's an Ace Digimon, so it acts as that hand trap because of that hand counter Blast Digivolution to Digivolve for free on the opponent's turn. Then he's also just an Ace card, so he has a natural low play cost, allowing us to actually think about utilizing his on-play and when Digivolving ability to try to capitalize on this card on all of the different ways we could play him. But the ability we're trying to gain is suspending one of the opponent's Digimon, and if they have no unsuspended Digimon, then we get to gain 2 memory, doing something very similar to the RB1 Diarabitmon in terms of allowing us to gain some additional memory when we utilize this card, which is really good during the opponent's turn to try to anti-tempo them. Then he has a nice when attacking ability, not limited to once per turn, where you get to play a Digimon with Angoramon in its text from our hand for free, which is really powerful because we do have some on-play abilities that we want to try to think about utilizing alternatively, and this card just helps us set those up. And it even has an additional part where at the end of the opponent's turn, we get to return that Digimon back into our hand, so we could use the on-play to disrupt or set up, depending on the situation that we're going to be utilizing this card and that card with. And then when it comes to the level 7s, the deck really doesn't need any level 7s, and they could just be whatever you want, but there's no real reason not to run a level 7, especially one as strong as Quartzmon. So I am going to be running 1 copy of Quartzmon because it's already interacting with everything the deck wants to do, suspending the opponent's Digimon down and taking advantage of all of their suspended Digimon, acting as a really good game finisher. But if you don't exactly have the budget for Quartzmon and still want to run a level 7, then Omnimon Merciful Mode is a really good alternative. Then when it comes to the Tamers, I'm going to be running an all Ruli lineup just because, well, the deck cares about Ruli specifically when it comes to the Tamers it's interacting with. So I'm going to run 2 copies of the BT10 Ruli because this is going to be the deck's dedicated memory fixing Tamer, but it also has an alternative way to try to suspend the opponent's Digimon down for attacking with our Angoramon named cards or level 5 and higher Digimon. But the main tamer of the deck and the star of the show is going to go to the 4 copies of the RB1 Ruli. So this allows us to try to Digivolve into our Beast-traded Digimon a little bit more efficiently during our turn. Then her second ability is really powerful, triggering at the end of your turn once per turn, where we get to unsuspend one of our Digimon with Angoramon in its text. So the idea is to use this card in combination with our Diarabitmon from RB1 to be able to try to maintain our turn, set up a new Ruli, make that attack, unsuspend our Digimon, gain a whole bunch of memory to try to maintain our turn, rinse and repeat until we run out of Rulis. So between the Rulis and the Diarabitmons, that's kind of creating the whole combo play on acting as similarly to Allforce as we can get. Then when it comes to the options, I'm just going to be running a fairly simple and standard consistency package. So I'm going to run 4 copies of Agility Training because, well, it's the training card. The delay ability helps our evolutions be a little bit more clean and efficient, while its main ability to set up that delay is helping us dig for our green cards. Then the 2 copies of Green Memory Boost is doing something similar. The delay effect, instead of reducing Digivolution cost, is just flat out gaining us 2 memory, allowing us to have more flexible things that we could do with it for the higher cost, and the searching ability digs us a little bit deeper, but lets us only look for green Digimon cards specifically. And that's kind of it for the main build of the deck, at least in my interpretation of it, and I think that this is a pretty fun and interesting combo-based deck. It's not necessarily the hardest deck to play, and the most difficult thing is just understanding how to utilize RB1 Ruli with RB1 Diarabitmon and the dynamics that those cards have to be able to line up all of those additional attacks on how to maintain your turn and use your tempo as efficiently as you possibly can. And the deck, it does have other useful cards that you could think about utilizing based on how you want to build the deck, the abilities you want to play around with, and the meta that you're expected to play against, as well as whatever cards you can muster up. So we do have other Angoramon synergy cards, we do have green removal options we could think about including, we also have other good green Tamers, as well as other cards that are interacting with playing out our Digimon, playing out our Tamers, suspending cards down, and then when it comes to future upgrades and support, there's not really a whole lot outside of maybe an option here or there that the deck really wants to take advantage of. So for the most part, the tools that we have are what we're going to be working with in order to upgrade and iterate the deck for future metas until something new actually does come that's significantly helping the deck in some way, shape, or form.